Hey friends, welcome back to the Bald Booktuber. My name is Scott. Today is January 10th, 2023. It is day 10 of the 31 videos in 31 days challenge. Hope you have been enjoying them. There is a playlist. Today I thought we would take a look at my, what I call Fantasy Authors Hall of Shame. And it's not that the authors themselves are shameful, it's shameful that I have not read these authors. I have scaled the mountains of Wheel of Time and Malazan and Realm of the Elderlands, and I've read A Song of Ice and Fire multiple times, and I've done First Law. I've done so many other things in modern fantasy, and I simply have some blind spots when it comes to some of the classical fantasy folks that inspired many of them, outside of Tolkien, of course. I also have some modern fantasy authors on this list that I haven't gotten to yet. But all in all, these are 10 people that I have not read, and it is shameful that I haven't, and I thought I would share them with you today. So these are not in a particular order. They're just sort of as I thought of them. And at number 10, I have Salman Rushdie. And I had mentioned him a little bit in yesterday's video about an upcoming release of his that I'm excited about. Again, ultimately, he doesn't really consider himself a fantasy author, but he does magical realism. And to me, that is fantasy. So typically he mixes, from my understanding, magical realism with historical fiction, which sounds awesome. His works that are perhaps the most well-known are Midnight's Children and the Satanic Verses. I would likely start with the beginning with him and read those books back, but very, very well thought of author, obviously, and someone that I would like to add to my reading diet sooner than later. I think probably I need to mix in more literary fiction anyway, so I think this would be a good place to start. At number 9, speaking of literary fiction and magical realism, and I have Haruki Murakami. And this is an author that I had never heard of up until recently. I know Alex over at Tall Guy Reads really loves Murakami's work. He got RJ over at RJ Reads to read Hard Boiled Wonderland last year, and RJ had it in his top 10. The book that I would be most excited to read of Murakami is Norwegian Wood. Yes, that is named after the Beatles song. Yes, that is probably my favorite Beatles song. So I would definitely be interested in starting with that, or at least reading that at some point. Murakami, again, is someone who is known as a literary genius. He's one of Japan's most well-known authors. Just seems like stuff I would potentially like that I need to try. And again, I need more literary fiction to kind of stretch myself out and experience new types of stories. At number 8, this one is maybe the most embarrassing one on the list. I have never read Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass, and so forth. Carroll, of course, was one of the most famous authors of the 19th century. He was a poet as well. His stories have had lots of staying power. They've been adapted a crazy amount of times. This is one I would love to revisit and read to my nieces, or, well, visit for myself. But once I've read it, I'd love to revisit it and read it to my nieces. Seems like it would be a cool story for them. Just seems like the type of author I need to get to. He had a massive influence on the literary world. He's someone that, as a fantasy reader, I should have under my belt and don't. At number 7, we have Fritz Library, and Library is known as essentially the founder of sword and sorcery fantasy. He even coined the term. He's most well known for the Fawford and the Grey Mouser series, which has been a massive influence on writers like Joe Abercrombie and like Scott Lynch. It was adventure fantasy early on. I believe these were written back in the 30s or 40s. Seems like something I would really, really enjoy. Something that doesn't require a ton of investment because you're following a small cast and you're just following their adventures. Seems like something fun, and they have been reprinting these over the last few years and re-recording them via audio, so it's probably as good a time to jump in as any with Fritz Library. All right, number 6. This will make my friend Dylan over on the Mike's Book Review server very happy, and this is Mervin Peak. Peak had a pretty sizable bibliography, but he's most well known for the Gormenghast series, which Rockio also is a massive fan of. This is sort of surreal fiction, kind of gothic, and the Gormenghast castle is perhaps the main character of the story, as I understand it. And Peak was heavily influenced by writers outside of fantasy like Charles Dickens, and, well, I guess Robert Louis Stevenson a little bit was within the fantasy realm, but those were his primary influences for his surreal fiction. For whatever reason, I've just never gotten to Gormenghast. I know Peak was a very talented not only writer, but also did the illustrations for those books. He was an artist as well. So I would love to check out that series at some point in time. I don't know what has stopped me. I do know that it will happen at some point in time. All right. We're at number 5, and this is Stephen R. Donaldson. And Donaldson is most well known for the Thomas Covenant series, which I did try Lord Fowl's Bane many, many years ago. I was probably in my early 20s when I first tried Lord Fowl's Bane, and I've never gone back to it. I would like to give it another shot at some point in time. I don't remember what exactly wasn't working for me at the time, but I put it down and I've never picked it back up. That's what Donaldson is most well known for. He also has the Gap Cycle on the sci-fi side, which my friend Brent read last year and really enjoyed. Donaldson is known for his psychological complexity and a bit of bleakness in his world and his characters, so that is definitely something I would like to try. I know Donaldson is very admired among current sci-fi and fantasy authors as someone they love to read. So yeah, that definitely is all sounds good, and at some point in time I will probably give this a shot. I do own most of the Covenant series, if not all of it, on Kindle, so it would not be a hard thing to kind of slide into. Number 4, we have Jack Vance. This is one of George R. Martin's favorite writers, and Jack Vance's The Dying Earth was also an influence for Gene Wolfe while writing Book of the New Sun. By the by, I would have had Gene Wolfe on this list up until about a week ago when I finished Shadow of the Torture for the first time. But we're not talking about Gene Wolfe right now. We're talking about Jack Vance. Vance is one of the most highly decorated sci-fi fantasy authors of all time. He was recognized by the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America as a Grandmaster. He was inducted into the Science Fiction Hall of Fame. He won multiple Hugos. He won multiple Nebulas. The guy was just very decorated and very respected and admired within the realm of sci-fi fantasy. He is most known for The Dying Earth, but he also wrote The Demon Princes, which is very well thought of, as well as other works. So Vance is definitely somebody I've always had an interest in and just never gotten around to yet. Dying Earth is something I do own digital copies of, so I would definitely like to check it out. All right, number 3, you talk about embarrassing. This one is rough. This is Ursula K Le Guin. Probably has been read by every single author that I love and most other readers that I admire that like science fiction fantasy, because she wrote both. She's one of the most decorated writers of all time. Some writers have called her the finest writer in the modern world, Ursula K Le Guin. So she is perhaps most well known for Earthsea, of course, her fantasy series, but she is also very well known for the Hainish Cycle, which is sci-fi. Um, there's not a lot to say here other than I need to rectify this at some point. She is one of the most progressive authors there is. She explored themes of gender and sexuality and these types of things before anybody else was doing it. I have no excuses. I need to rectify this. I need to read Ursula K Le Guin. To give an idea of the scale of how much she's been decorated, she won 8 Hugos, 6 Nebulas, and 22 Locus Awards. It's ridiculous how much this author has been awarded. The Library of Congress also named her a living legend in 2001. So definitely Le Guin is among the finest writers that speculative fiction has ever seen. I need to rectify it. I need to read Ursula K Le Guin. All right, number 2, Michael Moorcock, and most well known, of course, for Elric of Melniboné. With the new editions of Elric coming out in hardcover and them being narrated by my boy, Samuel Rukin, I have never been more excited to jump into Elric and give it a shot. It seems like the type of stuff I would like. Again, a lot of sword and sorcery type of stuff, shorter works, a lot of either novellas or short fiction kind of stapled together into bigger works as I understand it. I don't love that he was critical of Tolkien's writing and of C.S. Lewis's writing, but not everything lands for everybody. And probably his criticisms of those authors led to what he created on his own and made for himself. So it just be that way sometimes. So I definitely do want to get to Elric. I don't know when that will happen, but this is an author I definitely am going to spend some time reading. He has also been decorated by various guilds in fantasy, sci-fi, and horror. He was elected to Science Fiction and Fantasy Hall of Fame in 2004. So again, a very admired author. And then my last one here, number 1. Again, these are not in a particular order. This is Stephen Brust, who again is a guy I had not heard of up until recently. This is an author that Durfee raves about, and he has read more fantasy than anybody I have ever seen. So if it's good enough for Durfee, it's probably good enough for me. Brust is most well known for his Vlad Taltos series. And this is a series about a thief assassin, as I understand it. And I think it's got 15 or 16 volumes at this point in time. I did look, and we do have both Kindle and audio versions of them. I did pick up the audio version the other day for cheap, like $3.99. Haven't listened to it yet. But Brust is an American author that grew up in Minnesota. He is, again, kind of in the spirit of the Liber type of sword and sorcery, as I understand it. And it just sounds like fun. It sounds like a series that doesn't require a ton of investment, doesn't require a ton of necessarily brain power. So not complicated fantasy, just fun fantasy. And we could all use that from time to time. So those are my 10. These are 10 authors that I am shamed to say I have never read. And I will be rectifying that at some point and making sure that I get these individuals' books into the brain. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you are enjoying all of the content this month. Please do like, subscribe, comment, and ring the bell notification. And until next time, publication order always, my friends.